I'm Dr. Angela McBurdy of DoctorFlute.com, and today's flute tip is on playing with an open throat. Now, I've talked about how playing with an open throat can improve your tone, but I want to talk just a little bit more in depth about that, and more specifically, how your throat starts closing up while you're playing, and how breathing can interfere with keeping that throat open. So let's just talk about that within the context of a solo. Now, when we've talked about open throat, I've talked about that you have to take your breath like it's a yawning breath, open the throat from below here. So yes, it's going to help opening your sinuses, but I'm not talking about sinuses right now. We're just going to talk about the throat up to here. You take a yawning breath and it opens the throat right there. But a lot of times what I find is that I can say take a yawning breath, but as soon as the flute comes up, it's really tight in there. And what happens is that the tone becomes tight. Sometimes the closed throat actually interferes with the direction of the airstream, and so the airstream can be shaky, or it can be spotty, like it comes in and out. The tone doesn't have a steady stream where nothing interferes with it. So when you're playing, take notice of your sound and see if there's anything that interferes with that straight flow of the tone. So now there I played with an open throat. I just held it, and I know that I could play. Nothing is going to make that tone not come out, not have a straight stream, or be fluid from one note to the next because my throat stays open. So there have been many times where I've been working with a student on their tone and it's really improving, but I feel like there's something that's inhibiting their tone from just being really good. And then I say, oh yes, that's right, the throat. Let's talk about your throat. And then we find out that they've had a tight throat the whole time. So you can be doing everything right here. You can have that natural embouchure. You can be open. You can be big. You can be taking good breath and have good support. But if your throat is tight, it squeezes your tone. Let me see if I can demonstrate playing with a tight throat. It won't be quite the same because it's not, I can't get it. I've experimented trying to make it interfere with my flow of air and I can't do it. But you can hear the difference when I do it with a squeezed tight throat and then I open my throat. So this is Devienne's E minor concerto. So first, a tight throat. Okay, it's squeezed. You can hear that. I feel the tightness in my throat when I do that. And when I open it up, you can hear that the sound just has a place to echo. And I'm keeping it open here. It helps to keep my mouth open on the inside. And there's a straight flow of air. Nothing is going to interfere. So I can move my fingers and the tone sounds good. Now, if I were playing this part, there I have to change my embouchure. So if I have a tight throat here, I'm almost losing my low register because my throat is tight and it's keeping my jaw tight. It's kind of infiltrating everywhere. If I open it up, my low register can be right there. So I want you to listen to your tone and see if maybe you're playing with a tight throat, even if everything else feels good. Now, I want to address something else. Sometimes while we're playing, you can start off with a nice open throat. Let's see. I took a breath, but you could hear that breath. If you can hear your breath like that, you know for sure your throat is tight. There's no way that your throat can be open and I hear a breath like that. So if I'm taking a fast breath, it's tight. So it's also just training yourself that every time you take a breath, open the throat. Take that yawning breath. It is actually no slower. I think our head tells us that if I waste time and open up the throat so that I get a good deep breath, that I'm going to lose time and I'm not going to be able to take it fast enough. And you really can. So that fast breath, you didn't hear that, and that was very fast. It was a deep breath. I breathed so that I could have support. If you're breathing when you hear it, that's not helping your support. That's just getting your tone caught right here in your throat. So as you're playing your solo and going all the way through, work at stopping every time you need those quick, fast breaths. Those are the killers right there. Those really quick breaths that you take a breath deeply. You open your throat. It's a yawning breath. And train yourself out of taking that type of breath, because that is obviously closing that throat. Now, do we all do it? I do. I know we all do. And I have to train myself when I'm doing those really fast ones. I'm great when I have a whole beat for a breath or longer. But when I have to take a really fast one between 2/8 notes or something like that, which is really fast, it's hard. I have to train myself to stop and learn to take that breath from below. Open up the throat, take a yawning breath. And then I can come back in and my embouchure stays loose. Many times you're playing a solo in a recital all the way through and you get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, so that by the time you're done with that solo, you've lost your low register. And that's because, well, one of the reasons, because every time you take your breath, you've gotten tighter here, and eventually that makes this get tighter and tighter. So work on that. Practice stopping every time you need a breath and actually take a good one, even if that means it breaks up the flow, because you're training your body to always do that. Never that noisy one. You'll be very glad you do. It will help your tone tremendously, just worrying about that throat, keeping that throat open. Now, if you have an open throat and you're still not getting a good tone, well, then you know that it has to do with this here. Something is wrong here, interfering with your tone. So work on that throat, because it could either be the first step or it could be the last step to getting the tone you are looking for. That's today's flute tip.